You, Mr. Tom Young is with us today in Neola, and we are continuing. So we are on our next number, which is a longer conversation. What number would that be, Ms. Patrica?
0141.2, and I'm not sure that this is going to require a change in policy as much as it is a question for the board attorney and a discussion for the board.
Thank you.
And if this is not the time to have the discussion, let me know. But as I read through conflict of interest, B, what does B say?
B is voting conflicts.
Voting conflicts. So it has come up at the board table on a couple of different occasions. When is there a conflict? Is there a conflict when the board member is seeking reimbursement of legal fees? There is an AG opinion out there that says, no, there is no conflict. There is no conflict when the board is voting on its own salary. There is no conflict because it doesn't, it's not a special gain or loss. It's not a special gain or privilege. It's simply a reimbursement. So I don't know if that needs to be reflected here. I don't know if the board attorney wants to look at AG opinion CEO 88-46 entitled Water and Sewer District Commissioner voting on reimbursement of legal fees. It seems to me that these voting conflicts have to do with a business interest. If I have a business interest, then I have a conflict. But if I have, there is no conflict when the board votes to censure me. I can vote on that because it doesn't inure to my special gain or benefit. There is no conflict for me to vote when the board decides to send a letter to the governor saying that I'm a bad person, because that's not a business interest of mine. There's no special gain there when I vote in that. And I don't know if we need clarification in the policy, but it's come up, and I felt like this was the appropriate time to discuss it.
Okay. Mr. Prebrano, do you want to speak on that, or Mr. Young?
I think this is something that I'd like to speak to Neola about a little bit more.
Okay. I will say that in response to Ms. Patrica, I don't believe that this bylaw is inconsistent with anything you said. I agree with everything that you said.
But our actions at the board table have been inconsistent with what I just said, which is why I don't know whether it needs to be reflected in policy. Because at the same time, and this is something I failed to mention, is we are statutorily required to vote unless there is a conflict.
Yes, that's correct.
So when there is no conflict and we're not voting, then we're in violation of statute.
Yes.
So I think it needs to be clear the specific circumstances when there is a conflict, and in all other circumstances, we are expected to vote on an item that comes in front of the board, if we're physically present.
So, Ms.
I think this is something to, yeah, I think this is,
We will discuss this.
yes, because I think the statute also talks about appearance of conflicts and some other things, so I think we need to flush this one out a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, so this will be another, something else that you'll be coming back with us
We'll
on.
review this one and come back to you.
Okay.
Will that, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Will that include number 7, the misuse of public position as well? So you will just review this whole?
Which one? Oh, yes, okay.
No, not unless you have some, if you don't raise a question, we'll assume that the rest of it is okay. So if you wouldn't, let us know what your point is. A misuse of public position.
I'm trying to word it. I mean, it really just gets to, and maybe it's bylaws or policy or whatever, that I don't know if it exists, as to what the role of the chair is. And so often we have heard, well, the chair does this and the chair does that, but I don't know that that is written anywhere. Some of the things that have been handed over to the chair, or some of the, we talk about the writing of letters, we talk about certain things,
So Counselor, is this something that would be included in that discussion that you would have with us?
We can, I think probably this entire policy,
Okay.
just to make
Yes.
sure, I think this is
Okay.
an excellent opportunity for the board to review and be very specific in terms of what will be, be considered a conflict, so we can include all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would appreciate that too, because that certainly does not have anything to do with a chair or what we do here on the board or letters or anything like that. That's misuse of public position is totally different. So yeah, I would love for you all to work that out, only because that was just mentioned. So that way there is clarification.
And the letters are addressed in a later bylaw.
Yeah.
Yeah, the letters and stuff are addressed in another one, but there are other situations, and maybe there is one that talks about the duties of the chair.
There is. So you'll go over this whole, Mr. Prebrino?
We'll review. The one thing I just want the board to understand is this is all based on statute, this is all law.
Right.
Some of the things that you're asking are going to be interpretations of law, so we'll come back and give you what we believe is that interpretation.
That'd be great, thank you. Okay, does
Next
anyone,
number.
do you have another number there?
That's Scribner's.
Scrivener's errors?
Yep, I'm just highlighting those so I can email them to you separately.
Okay.
Page 47, which is policy 0143.
Elections.
It doesn't fit how we do it. I assume you'll put in there how we do it, and that's what we'll approve.
Yes.
I have something about that now.
Which, repeat?
Okay,
Which
it's
one?
0143 elections,
Okay.
and
Can,
Ms. Gittens?
and can that reflect somewhere, for lack of a better term, the transfer of power when one elected official, when a new elected official comes in, and what is that process? Because there have been situations where a new person is elected and, you know, weeks afterwards, they're still waiting to basically take control of that position. So I don't know if is that policy or bylaw as well?
That is addressed later.
Statute
later.
upon swearing in.
But I mean, how, okay, yes, upon swearing in, but I don't want to go into it on the dais, but when that one person leaves, the other person comes in, are they here until they are sworn in?
But that's in 0144 under term. So it's in there, Ms. Gittens.
Okay.
Yeah. Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
Some of the other things in terms of onboarding and all of those things, you have that in your protocol.
Okay.
So,
Ms. Vaughn?
And actually, while we're touching on 0143, let's not forget that we have somewhere, we've set a date to take a look at this. I don't remember the exact date, but it's coming fairly soon to see if we want to change into the single-member districts, 7 of them. That was, remember, brought up by EDAC. So that could, depending on what the board's preference is, that this could change quite a bit.
Not until after a referendum.
Yeah, that's a multi-year process, so we need the policy.
Right.
In the interim.
But
We need to start it if we're going to.
Ms. Vaughn, go ahead. No, you finish what you were saying, please.
yeah, that's it, that it could change. And yeah, you're right, we have to have a referendum, but yeah, it just kind of underscores, we like to think, oh, these are going to be here for next half century, but They may not be here for more than a year or two.
Yeah, in reality, we understand that these can change at any time.
Yeah.
They're living documents, pretty much.
Right.
Ms. Giovanelli?
So I have a question. Should it have something in here regarding residing in the county that you were elected in, or does that matter? I was just curious.
That's 143.1. The district or the county?
The elected official.
Look at 143.1. It has,
Oh, I'm on 43. Oh, I didn't go to that. A residence. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
What
it's
was
there.
the next one?
It's
Thank
there.
you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
One other point of reference I'd like to make
Yes,
is
please.
into the bylaw 0142.3 orientation,
I'm sorry, which number, please?
0142.3. That, I believe, would also go to Ms. Gittens' question
Yes.
about what you're supposed to do as you transition into the position.
Thank you. Okay, and, oh yeah, orientation, yes. Thank you so much. Any other numbers?
0144. Should we include our new 12-year term limits in here?
There is a new provision that Neola has added, and if you, there is an entirely new paragraph that we have added.
Yeah, it's there.
it's there.
The
It's there.
12-year term.
I'm sorry, that wasn't on my version.
Yeah.
It's a new one.
Yeah, she might have printed it.
And can I just, may I ask a
ahead.
question? May I ask a question on that one? So how does that really work? Like if you're already in the position, does it like start now?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it's 2022.
You've been here for 8, you've got 12 more years if you're elected, 3 more times.
God forbid. Okay.
12 years is enough.
Okay, and
Page 53 requires board decision. Let me tell you what 53 is. Travel and per diem. My feedback here is I don't really care how we do it in county, and I can't remember what our protocols say.
I'm sorry, which number is that, please?
Sorry.
147.1.
147.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I personally don't reimburse for in-county travel, but I don't have any issue with a colleague doing so, and I wouldn't want to stop a colleague from doing so. Mileage reimbursement is a very common business practice. We are professionals.
Yep.
I haven't done it for years.
I understand, but, you know, I don't necessarily want to stop a colleague from doing it. Is it an option we want to continue to make available to our colleagues?
There are a number of options in here which need to be addressed.
Correct.
So, and I haven't, I'm sorry.
Ms. Giovanelli?
So I actually, thank you, Ms. Patrica, for bringing that up. So at the last conference that I went to, they had reserved a car for me, but I had told them the prior time that I cannot drive a car. I need an SUV. I cannot see. I drive a SUV. My car is an SUV. I will never drive a car. And I drove a district car, but that was like, for me, the side of the window hit me right here. So it was like me roller skating on a skateboard on my belly all the way to on I-75. If y'all can imagine that, because I could not see. And several times, I almost had several accidents, because I cannot see the car. I'm too short. And the car, I haven't driven a car, I don't know, when the last time, I can't even remember.
You have to drive a short person car, is that what you're saying?
I need a booster seat. So, anyway, so I had to drive my car because it was just unsafe for me to drive the car. So I drove my own car up, and
you
they
should
had
be
reserved a car.
reimbursed for that.
And, yes, I need a booster seat, I'm sorry. And, I mean, when I test drive cars, I make sure that the seat goes up, and people look at me like I'm crazy when the seat, I'm like, is this it? Because it stops at the dashboard at my eyes, and I'm like, wait a minute. And the salesmen don't like me, because that's the first thing I do, is I make sure the seat works for me. So, that being said, I haven't asked reimbursement from June, but if the car's not available, it's not fair that I should have to drive that car and when I don't feel safe in it.
Well, and again, this is statute. All the universities, everyone uses this. And
But this
we had a conversation about if cars were available and we were able to use them, then we could use them. That was a conversation we had, geez, what, a couple years ago? But it wasn't a mandate that we had to do that if they were available. And we chose to,
We agreed as a board that that's the way it was going to go.
if they have them available.
Yeah, when they had a car available, but I had requested from when I went to Howie in the Hills that I can't drive a car again after that on a roller skate,
Right.
I was on a skateboard actually all the way to 75 on my stomach. But anyways, that's what it felt like. So I just want to bring that up because, I'm not going to get any taller. Sorry. I'm not growing anymore,
You
unfortunately.
can drive your own car.
I did, I drove my own car.
Yes.
Okay.
So may I suggest?
Please.
First of all, that's the next section. So if we adopt the next section as it's written, Ms. Giovanelli, I believe it covers your issue, because you're right. As a board, I think we did agree
Yeah, we did.
that because the mileage reimbursement was getting so expensive that we would use district cars because it was a lot cheaper. So I think that as a board, we can have an agreement that if it's safe to do so, you drive a district car or whatever. If we adopt this language, then you're covered.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, the in-county travel, where does the board want to go with it? Do they
Oh,
want the
in-county.
first option or the second option?
And I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. You're on 147.1.
7.1.
And the question is, do you want to reimburse
In-county.
or not?
County travel.
Those are the options, reimbursement or not.
And we can't,
But statute says you can. If we're
So-
sticking with statute.
You can.
right, so if statute says we can, we leave it in there. And I think like we did before, it's optional.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, then nobody's gonna point a finger and say, look what you did, because it's statute.
Correct.
And if you choose not to be reimbursed, you can simply make that point.
Yes.
Okay. So is there a choice we have to make here,
Yes,
Mr. Young?
that's the question. It sounds like there's a consensus for reimbursement.
Allowed by,
it's the
we want to keep it, okay, so do we want to keep with the chapter, Florida Statute Chapter 1.12, 112.061? Do we want to keep that per statute because we're saying we're trying to stick with statute? I believe we should
Yes.
stick with that.
And you definitely don't want to put a number in
Ms.
there.
Vaughn?
Yeah,
It'll change. The statute number changes every once in a while.
Right, sure.
I just had a question. Defined as travel performed as part of a board member's duties. Okay, as a matter of course, we go to community events, and that's another thing we actually have had a discussion on, and we're just touching on it when Ms. Ryder was having to order some tickets. We said, actually, I think it was a couple years ago, we don't all have to go to everything. For people that choose to go to lots of the, let's say the dinners, the galas, the dinners, and those sort of things, is that considered board members' duties?
Yes.
Okay, and see, that's where just me personally feel like that's different from going to the opening of a new school or something like that. I don't know, I've never used this in county, and especially I would think if, we're going to an event that's already costing the district money, and everybody's going, I don't see how we're saving any money. We had talked about that a couple years ago, and then we never really acted.
Well, I believe when you go to these events, you go there, you have your name badge, you should have your name badge on because you're representing, regardless of what the event is, you have that name, your badge on, and you are representing the district.
I totally understand that, but the discussion that we had a couple years ago was about, do 7 people need to represent the district on any given thing. And we never did get around to that. I don't know if it needs to be put in some kind of a code here. That's probably a little bit much, but I remember it was in conjunction with, you know, everybody's tightening belts, and I just hadn't really seen that done in terms of expenditures on these things. And I you know.
Madam Chair, if I might offer an
Yes, please.
observation. This discussion, in my opinion, can take place in two different situations. One is here, where you would begin now to discuss what constitutes duties, and you would attempt to define it and put it in your bylaws. The other way is to take the matters as they come up at a board meeting to discuss whether what this particular issue involves constitutes a duty or not. I think it would be very difficult for you to define in bylaws what constitutes duties. I think that that's probably on a case-by-case basis. When it comes up, that's the time to talk about it. That's my own observation. You can address it here. I'm happy to sit back and let the board define what constitutes a duty.
Ms. Fisher and then Ms. Patrica.
Well, I think that community visibility is very important, and we would not necessarily be invited to some of those galas and events if we weren't board members. And there are some where I think all of us or most of us should be there. There are a few events like the prayer breakfast and things like that. And then there are others that I think we have been taking turns and not all going to a lot of them. I mean, and it, like if I represent the Drug Free Coalition and they have something, I go. I don't think we cannot attend when we're invited, or at least a representative or, you know, or more. I think it's important for us to be visible in the community. We rely on our community for support and partnerships, and I think that's becoming increasingly important. So, and I know we haven't taken, or I haven't anyway, taken travel reimbursement for years, ever since money was short, which it really isn't anymore.
Is that a joke?
I don't even know if it's necessary, but adding apolitical organizations, because I attend political meetings, and I wouldn't be attending them if I wasn't on the school board.
Right.
So you could argue that that's part of my board member duties, but I don't want us reimbursing each other for attendance at Libertarian Club meetings, for example. I'm trying to find the least offensive party.
No, I agree with you there. Ms. Giovanelli?
So I think I think that's another topic, but I don't think we can tell people what they should go to and not go to. I think that we're all adults and elected officials, and we should do what's best for our community, and that's an individual, you know, that's up to the individual. But back to the travel, I think we do need to talk about this travel a little bit, because some people would have to travel very far. I don't travel as far as some, and I would never want to stop. Gas is very expensive right now, let's just be realistic, and that's what we need to talk about. And I don't think that hardship, because of the gas, should not be, you know, I mean, I don't think we should get paid to come here, but Cape Coral schools are far away, and Lehigh, they're far away. And for those that might live in the Cape and drive and so forth, I don't know. I mean, I think we need to be responsible about it, but I think that we need to be respectful of people's, of the expense of the gas right now, and so I'm not opposed to the in-county, travels reimbursement on some of it, for some people. So, my opinion. I said it last time too, so.
No, I agree with you.
So I think we have a consensus for option 1, under in-county travel. And then after reimbursable in-county, the sentence that begins reimbursable in-county travel, could we place a comma at the end and say exclusive of political organizations? Because again,
Yes.
we all know, the
Yes.
7 of us know that, but future board members
Yes,
could
absolutely.
easily argue, my attendance at that meeting was because I'm a board member.
Ms. Gittens?
I kind of, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I kind of disagree. If it's in a year that I'm not running for office and someone in a political organization wants someone from the board to come and speak at that group, and it's not, I'm doing it to run for office, I should not have to tell them that I mean, I can still do that and not be being reimbursed. Do you see what I'm saying now? I mean, if you're still going on behalf of, I don't know, I feel that to specify political organizations, there's caveats to that during different times.
Ms. Giovanelli?
Well, actually, I think that's just being transparent and putting that in there, that we're not doing that.
Yes.
So
Okay, I see how you're saying it.
that's how I think, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but that's how I would look at that. It's for the community to know, we're not having the spending tax dollars for us to go to political events
I agree.
on the dime of the, of the taxpayers.
I have to agree with that as well. So how are we with adding that at the end of the sentence then?
I like it.
Ms. Fisher, are you okay with us
Yes,
adding
I'm
that?
fine with
Ms.
that.
Giovanelli, I know you just said you
Yes.
were. Ms. Patrica, yes. Ms. Morgan, Ms. Gittens, thank you, and Ms. Vaughn?
I'm against the in-county travel reimbursement, period, because I think we are very fairly reimbursed for this job. And if that's just my personal opinion. And I also feel that we have asked divisions, organizations in this district to tighten their belts. And to me, that's just one specific way that I tighten my belt. And, you can't help where you live. If you live in Bonita Springs and there's an event in Alva, you choose to go or not to go. I mean, technically, all of the reimbursement, doesn't it, it's not from your house, is it? Isn't it from here, from the district?
Actually,
That's how it is for I know that's out of county travel.
yeah, Mr. Pre-Bruno, isn't it, it's from your it's from your home, correct? It's not from here.
Yes, it's from your home.
It is from your home.
Or
Going out
in
of
county,
For in-county, it's from your
but
home.
not for
Let me-
the
let me-
out of county, is it?
I'm pretty sure it's from
For
your,
out of county.
I'm pretty sure the statute does state that it's from.
Let me double check
From
on that
your,
one. From my memory.
From your home.
I'm not getting it, so let me double check.
Patrica?
And just to offer a different perspective, people of my age and at my stage in life with children my age, I am in the prime earning years of my life, and I have sacrificed significant earning potential to take this job and be in a position of public service. So to sacrifice reimbursement, professional reimbursement for miles traveled in pursuit of my job, I think is asking a lot. I understand that from your perspective, you think you're appropriately reimbursed for the work that you do, but different people in different stages of life can't necessarily afford to do this job and pay out of pocket for the miles associated with doing this job. I just say that to you to offer a different perspective. That's,
May I
don't want to
respond?
argue with you, I just want to offer a different
Madam Chair,
perspective.
Yes.
if I might offer an observation here, I thought that there was a consensus.
There is.
There is.
So
There is.
may I just really
Yes,
quickly
please.
respond? Yeah, there are a lot of people that are elected to school board and also maintain other full-time jobs. There have been a lot of people that have done that, both prior members and members now. So what I'm saying is it's all one's decision, and if one makes that decision that this is what he or she wants to do, then, you know, that's part of it. So, you know, to point a finger and say, well, you know, you're retired and that makes it different for you, I don't think that's true at all. We make our decisions, and that's why, I am taking the stand that's in the minority here.
Thank you. One last thing, because
So real quick, and I apologize, but real quick, all due respect, Ms. Vaughn, so people that are running for this seat, and they look at the law, they see that it's going to be paid for, the law allows for it, so why would they think anything otherwise when that they're going to be reimbursed? So, I mean, you know, it's a big picture, and, you know, I mean, and there's people that have, you know, second jobs and, or, you know, or a primary job and do this too. I mean, and it has happened. You know, I think there's 2 of us on the board that have another job. I'm one of them, and I think Ms. Jordan is another one. And
I'm a third.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, you know, so, I mean, you have to, people that are running for this position are looking at the law and they're like, okay, well, if I have to go to Bonita and I live in Cape Coral, I'm going to be paid for it. They might assume that. And so that's why I think you have to, I don't think we close that door. So, thank you. Sorry.
So, Mr. Young, yes, it was a consensus that we leave it.
You can eat in 45 minutes.
Count the minutes.
So is
It's not part of the consensus.
May I feel like there's consensus that you shall be reimbursed at the
that
max.
correct? We're keeping it what the state statute says.
Yes. Was there consensus as well as the exclusive of political organizations? I believe there was. I just want to
Yes.
make sure that we're, okay.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
So Florida Statute 1001.39 subsection 2 does allow reimbursement from the member's residence while
Right.
performing duties, just for clarity.
I knew I had read that, so thank you for clarifying that.
Ms. DePuy-Bruno, will you give me that Florida statute one more time?
1001.39.
Thank you. Okay, is there another number?
I would fast forward to PO 0149. I don't have any issues with anything up to that point.
149, access to records?
Correct.
Pause you, though. There
Yes,
were
please.
2 other options.
Oh, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
What number were we at there?
The travel, which is down about the commercial airfare or dependent care.
That's right.
If you could review those and identify.
Did I see that?
Yeah, I didn't bring them up because I didn't have an opinion, and I figured somebody might have an opinion. May I ask, does the temporary dependent care, that's obviously provided for in federal law, right? So to Ms. Giovanelli's point, if it's provided for in federal law,
Stick by this federal law.
the other one is just commonsensical.
Is,
Go with the cheapest seat unless it costs more. Just take the cheapest seat, right?
Yes.
correct.
Of course.
Costs more in terms of, you know, if it's an overnight flight, then you pay for the more expensive flight. That's basically what that's saying, right? That seems commonsensical.
Madam Chair.
Yes, please, Ms. Gittens.
Okay, I have to be honest, I learned a new word today. Circuitous? Is it circuitous? So in other words, if they're gonna take me through Texas and Tennessee and all that to get there just to save on the ticket? Okay. Again, it's statute. We leave in statute. We don't take out statute because we want to do something different. So,
I agree with you.
Just wanted to make sure we checked the boxes and.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing that to our
And there's a
attention.
box in 148 as well.
So 148 is the next one, and that's the use of equipment and services. And that would be, so the superintendent is authorized to make available to school board members their, let's see, routine supplies, computer. Well, is the electric communication device, would that be our computers and our cell phones? That's what we already have. So,
In that box.
yeah.
I didn't realize if we didn't take it, we didn't get paid for it. Right? A stipend in lieu of electronic devices. But it's the law.
So what would you need marked here then?
One of those, or both.
The
We have to decide
the
whether
electric,
we want one or both of them included.
Oh, so either provide electronic device or get a stipend.
instead.
Or both.
So if it's both, we just check both?
Right, so I believe we are afforded the phones and our computers for use for our work purposes. And that way that is strictly for, most of the time it's strictly for work purposes. So I believe that the, number one, the electronic communication device would be, well, is what I would say, not instead of a stipend. Because that's what we're already doing as we sit here right now.
I know of no boards who check the second box.
Yeah. So are we in agreement of that, ladies?
So just the first one?
First one?
Right.
Thank you. And we're not voting, we're just talking this over.
And just to note too, that our ISD individuals have looked at this and checked the box for us. If you see there's a corrected version, that actually corrected it for us, we don't get a stipend.
Right, okay. Thank you.
I wondered where that came from.
And what was the next one then? Was the
I'm on 0149.
access to public records?
So is it a protocol or a policy, Attorney Dupree-Bruno, that requires a board vote if an information request to the superintendent takes more than an hour and a half?
That's in your protocol manual.
So I would suggest that we add that to our policies. And just so you all know, as a background to this protocol becoming policy thing, I had a conversation with Dr. Bernier, what's his name? The man that we all want to come in and help us as a board.
Dr. A.J. Crable?
Dr. Crable, who suggested that these protocols, the best way to move forward as a board that's focused on student outcomes is to include those protocols in policy, because it gives them teeth.
Yeah, so coincides together. Ms. Gittens?
I know that at one point I had requested some public records and I got a bill for it. And after I brought it up, they said, you don't have to pay or whatever, but is that anywhere in here, or is that anywhere in policy or statute, that if a board member requests information in the performance of their duties, that they have to pay? Because I did get a bill.
Yep, Ms. Dupree-Bruno, I know we've had conversations over this before. So can you, if you would please,
So the board is entitled to information that will allow them to conduct their business and serve as board members. In your protocol manual, you do have a process in terms of requesting documents that you basically agreed to follow. So That's pretty much the answer, is that you do have a process that you agree to. In terms of public records requests, I think if it's over that time period, I believe is where the public records request is made, Ms. Gittens. But I think that's based on your process document, your protocol manual.
Say that last part again, if it's, so in other words, if it's gonna, if whomever says it's gonna take more than an hour and a half, then I have to ask the board to vote on whether I get the information that I am requesting.
That's yes.
And
And I want to just pull up the protocol manual just to double check if it's an hour and a half, just to make sure I'm correct with the amount of time. I believe it's an hour and a half.
I think it is too.
So that's what your manual.
and I know we've talked about that. I have an issue with that. I mean, if 4 people decide, no, you shouldn't get that, then what is my recourse if it's something that I do want to get?
You make a public records request and you pay for it.
But that negates, if it has to do with the, doing and performance of my duties, which is why I'm asking for it, isn't that negating the law that says I should get anything that I need in order to do the duties? It doesn't say I can get any information unless other board members feel I shouldn't.
Okay, I'm going to go, thank you for that, Ms. Gittens. Ms. Fisher, and then Ms. Giovanelli.
So here in policy 01.49, it specifically says in the first paragraph, individual members of the school board do not possess the powers that reside in the board, but no member of the board shall be denied documents or information to which he or she is legally entitled and which are required in the performance of his or her duties as a board member.
Right, but you're saying, still though, you're saying that the board can decide whether or not that's required.
I don't know that we're saying that, except that you're saying that we say that in our protocol.
So that is what the board decided to do. You're absolutely correct, Ms. Fisher, in the reading of the statute. The board is entitled to whatever information it feels it's necessary to conduct its business, to do its duty. Now, the board has had extensive conversations about access to documents, and in your board protocol manual, it states that you can request general information presented in writing to the superintendent. The board member, if it's less than an hour and a half, then you will be able to receive those documents. If it's more than, I'm sorry, not an hour, an hour and a half, 1.5 hours. And if it's more, then it needs to come to the board, and then the board will make a decision as to whether or not you can get those documents. That's what's in your protocol manual.
Right, so the protocol is going against the statute is what I'm trying to say.
The protocol is not necessarily going against the statute. The statute says you're entitled to the records. The board has self-imposed upon itself a reasonableness, if you will, of the process and the access to those documents. This is all to the board's discretion as to how you want to move forward and apply this policy.
If I might, Madam Chair.
Yes, please. And then I'll come back to you, Ms. Fisher.
Having heard the protocol, as I understand what I heard, there is nothing in the protocol that prohibits a board member from getting documents. It simply says, if you ask for documents that take more than an hour and a half to acquire, the board can determine whether or not to charge you. Not whether or not you deserve to get them. You can get them. You have to pay for them. That's what the board has decided.
But it's
That's been
against policy.
decided, right?
Okay, so Mr. Pre-Bruno, and then Ms. Fisher.
It's a little different. If it takes more than an hour and a half, it comes to the board, and then the board makes a decision as to access to the documents. However, at the last review of our protocol, the board added additional language that talked about specific agenda items, that if an individual board member needed information necessary to be able to vote on a particular agenda item, they will be able to get that information. So that's in the protocol manual as well.
And if I may say the last thing, that still, you are still putting in the hands of 6 other people the determination of whether you get information or not, which is contradictory to the law, the statute that says, if I determine in order to do my job, I need this information, I should be able to get it, not at the bequest of a 4-3 vote.
Okay, Ms. Vaughn, I'll get right to you. So Ms. Fisher, go ahead and finish, and then Ms. Giovanelli, and then Ms. Vaughn.
I just wanted to follow up on that. In this day and age, with everything being digital, it seems almost impossible to me that if a record exists, that it would take more than an hour and a half to retrieve it, for one thing. And you know, as elected officials, our authority is limited as individuals, but as a member of the board, if you need that information, it clearly says in the statute that you can get it. So I think we need to take a look at the protocol, the wording of the protocol.
Thank you. And then Ms. G, please.
And I would actually agree with that. Dupree Bruno, the statute doesn't, it also state that anything financial that we can get, it doesn't matter regarding the time. So, I mean, we're going to start putting, things that would be exclusive into this policy. I think we're starting to get into changing the policy, and I think we need to stick with the policy. I personally have been denied invoices to do my job. And I asked for specific invoices, and I was given 2 back in the day. So I think that we have to be really careful with this one. I would not want to touch it, change it.
You would not want to change what you're reading right here? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'd stick to the law.
Okay, so Ms. Vaughn, please.
Yeah, I also would like to see that hour-and-a-half stipulation gone, because by statute, we are, as this says, we are, legally, we can get the information that we feel that we need to do our job. And so I would like to see it go.
And I'm just going to say, if, devil's advocate, so if I decide that every day I want something and I ask and it's going to take this department 3 hours to do, that department 4 hours to do, I, as an individual, because that's what I need, not necessarily is it what everybody needs as the board, but what I think I need, I could really be working these people to death, and taking upon myself to, how do you stop them from, where does that end at?
Because we're professionals.
I'm going to let Ms. Morgan speak, and then I'll come back to you, Ms. Vaughn.
Yeah, so one of the problems we've had is that board members sometimes choose to conduct their own audit of internal operations by asking for documentation. And frankly, I think that if there is concern about how a function is being performed, and concern on the part of one board member that an audit of the function be performed, that the entire board should participate in that decision. So the board should be aware that the board member has that concern. The board should be engaged in that process from the outset. So that's why, I've always looked at this as not, the abuse comes not from looking for data. The abuse comes from looking to accomplish something that has not been vetted by the board, I guess is what I want to say. And I think, particularly with respect to new board members, that there needs to be a very clear understanding of what the purpose of access to records is for board members. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Ms. Vaughn?
Well, we've talked a lot about ethical considerations here, and doing what's right for children, etc. If there's something that I feel needs to be investigated, I am legally entitled to getting that and to being professional on it. And the other thing is, and I'm glad Ms. Morgan brought up what she did, looking back 3 or so years ago when I was first on this board, I remember the incident that Mrs. Giovanelli was talking about. I had an incident where I was asking for information at a meeting and it was denied, and it was like pulling teeth to get anything. And it has been the history of this board. This is a board, this is a split board right now with typically 4-3, 3-4 votes. And it's been my observation that there are people that, for instance, if I did want something, if I wanted some figures from a certain department, and other people felt, well, why is Vaughn looking into that? We're just going to vote no. It's become a political thing on the board, and I feel that that violates my rights as an individual member. If we're going to be so close in, well, we must follow the statute in order to allow people to get their stipend for in-county travel, we're going to do that, and then we're going to say, but if it might be 2 hours worth of stuff that Vaughn wants, and we don't think it's legitimate, and we don't trust her professional judgment about that, we're just not gonna, we're gonna vote against her. And that has happened, and don't deny it, folks. You know it's happened, where, and it's happened less so lately, but board members should have, they should be professional. We should trust them to be professional, and they should be given their right under the law to seek things. No ifs, ands, and buts from me.
Got you, Ms. Vaughn, thank you. But I think that, to me, that's why we work with the superintendent now. And a lot of times when we have questions that arise even here, before we get back in the back, our answers are already to us as we're speaking about things. So with that, in working with the superintendent and his team, he's the source to me to get us the information that we need to make decisions, or whatever that looks like. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing, working in partnerships with him. To make,
don't tell me what I'm supposed to be doing.
No, I'm not telling you what you're supposed to do. Okay, well, okay, let me rephrase that, Ms. Vaughn, excuse me. That is what I believe that well, that's what I do. I would work with them to try to get that information as an individual.
You think I don't?
No,
I do.
I am not saying that, Ms. Vaughn. I'm not saying that at all, so please do not take it as such. I'm just speaking in general. I'm not speaking on anyone, any person. Not you nor anyone else. That's why we have a superintendent here. Ms. Giovanelli.
Okay, so real quick. The law allows us to get the documents. We put a stipulation in to control that. The law allows us to get the documents. I'm going to keep saying that. And we are looking at the fact that we have a referendum where there could be possibly an elected superintendent. Then what happens when our power is totally limited? I believe if somebody requests something, it should be shared with everyone on this table after it's received, and let us look at the information, and we all have our eyes opened, and it shouldn't go to excluding one person that requested it. Share that information and let us make a decision as a board if there's something further that we need to look at. The law allows for us to get the documents. Forget the 1.5 hours. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Giovanelli.
And
Ms. Fisher?
basically, yeah, that was what I was going to say. I mean, one member can request information that they need, and it should be shared with the entire board, and the board should be aware.
So we can act. And Ms. Patrica?
So the law does allow that, but it does not allow that for free. Nowhere in the statutory language does it say that a board member can have access to any document that they want for free. So I think the board is within its rights and authority to set limits on allowing individual members to go down rabbit holes and to monopolize superintendent and staff time. And whether superintendent is elected or appointed does not alter the board's authority with regard to recommendations that come in front of the board. I mean, the superintendent still needs to recommend things to the board, and the board still has to pass it. So I don't know how this has anything to do with elected versus appointed, but I would caution the board that if you take away the hour and a half, that you are allowing individual members to dictate the amount of time used by staff and by the superintendent to track down whatever our personal agendas might be, whereas the...
Point of order, Madam Chair. We're talking about information, not personal
Other people have their hands up.
I call the point of order.
I am allowed to
Okay,
have an
Ms.
opinion. and I
please
am
allow,
speaking.
okay, I'm going to allow her to, Ms.
But I
Patrica.
called a point of order.
Okay, so your
Madam
point,
Chair, go
yes.
ahead and roll on the point of order.
Okay, so
I
the,
called a point of order because I don't think we need to be defining for someone why they want information and saying going down a rabbit hole or personal whatever. We're talking at this level, not a personal level. We're talking about whether information should be received or not received, paid for or not paid for, according to statute.
Okay, Madam Chair, at this point, you can roll on the point of order.
so I am going to allow Ms. Patrica to finish her comments, and then I'm going to Ms. Morgan.
I was interrupted, so I don't remember what my comments were.
And you did not address the point of order.
That is my point of order, is that I hear you, and I'm going to allow her to finish speaking. So I'm going to go from you now. Thank you, and Ms. Morgan.
So how about if we add something to the effect that any documentation requested of a board member, requested by a board member of staff, it must be shared with every board member. So, because what we've had is people doing individual investigations, and we're aware of it, and asking staff to do things, but the information hasn't been shared with the rest of the board when it's been provided. So I would suggest that we simply say that staff is obligated to provide information requested by one board member to the entire board.
And I think that goes back to what Ms. Giovanelli was speaking about, making sure that everything is shared, so if there is an issue, that we all can address that issue that is at hand. Ms. Vaughn?
And I'm happy, absolutely happy to share anything, just as we established quite a while ago to make sure all of us on the board had the same information. It's become a protocol that the superintendent, when he shares something with one person, even though maybe one person asked it, that it's shared with everyone. And I want to say something. I know it'll stick in the craw of some people, but I don't really care. You know, when members of the community came here and they had a list of 100+ books in our libraries that they were taking offense to, jumping through the hoops to go through all the libraries and do this and have meetings and all of that. And I am really taking offense when individuals in the community seem to have more jurisdiction for free information than I do, and B, that my professionality is undermined by a fellow board member saying that people like what I'm suggesting, going down rabbit holes and satisfying personal agendas. So I think perhaps Ms. Gittens was hinting at that, but I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to have people suggesting that my professional actions here in the last 3.5 years, or any of our actions, equal personal agendas or going down rabbit holes.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn.
That's
Ms. Gittens.
I do believe that we already have a process that if we request information, that it's shared with everyone. I can name several occasions that I have asked for something and the staff will say, and we have to share it with everyone. I've been told that on several occasions. So I believe that's already happening. There's no clandestine, give me this information. And I will just say personally, the information that I've asked for on the dais and didn't receive it. Several times. So I'm looking forward to the fact that we are turning the corner with a new superintendent. We are definitely going to, in a few months, have new board members. Things are progressing and things are changing. So I'm just saying, can we just keep it at the 100-degree level as opposed to going backwards?
Okay, Mr.
Real quick.
Giovanelli, then we'll turn it back over to Mr. Young.
And if this is being abused, I would hope that the superintendent would come back to the board and say that this is being abused. And I don't know that we have to put that in writing, but that disclaimer should be right now, discussed. If it's actually being abused, then he would say, hey, policy is being abused. Thank you.
And this protocol predates my time on the board. I raised my hand and she nodded at me.
I didn't hear it.
Sorry. Okay, Ms. Patrica.
The protocol predates my time on the board, and it was based on prior school board members going down rabbit holes. I am very direct, very direct. If I have an issue with you, I will name you. This has nothing to do with you. This is about appropriate functions of a board as opposed to individual board members exercising authority that I think from an efficiency perspective they shouldn't have. Has nothing to do with any individual member at the table. This predates us and it's been abused. And again, relying on the advice of Dr. Crable, he indicated that should be put in policy as opposed to it just being a protocol. Nothing personal here. This is a professional discussion that has nothing to do with the individual personalities sitting at the table.
Thank you. Mr. Young?
Where are you?
We are 16 minutes away from your lunch.
Yep. So 0149.
Do you have any changes to this policy, this bylaw, 0149? It seems to me that you have discussed in great detail, a protocol that I now understand, and the issue is, you want to change this bylaw, or do you want to change your protocol? And as Ms. Patrica said, or third option, do you want to bring your protocol into a bylaw? So it seems to me you have three options here. We need to know which way you're headed. I don't get a sense of it yet.
Ms. Gittens?
Can we just follow the statute? The statute says that we can get information that we need. It doesn't have a caveat. It doesn't have a, if this one says it's okay or that one says it's okay, and this is not passed. This is within the last 3.5 years that I have experienced this and been told to stay in my lane and stop asking questions. So this is current. My thing is, it's law, it's statute. We leave it alone. I think we've said that all morning.
Yes, I've heard you say that. But what I have heard a difference of opinion. First of all, the law does not address the question of cost. The law says you shall be entitled to information to allow you to perform your duties.
Right.
Your protocol apparently says the board by a vote can say, no, you don't. But the protocol and the law do not address the question of cost. So is that an issue that you're going to bring up here? It seems to me it's been raised. I don't yet have a direction. This bylaw says you're entitled to the information. This bylaw is silent on whether you're charged or not. So do you want to leave this just the way it is? It says you're entitled to the information, and then you guys deal with the protocol later.
If the statute is silent, we should be.
So, okay, I hear what you're saying. So go on with this and then take it to the next level when we go back to the protocols and processes and whatever that is and change that if need be. But this can stand as is.
Seems to me that I think there's a consensus on that point.
Ms. Morgan?
Now, I believe that we should add something to the effect that staff will ensure all documents requested under this policy are shared with each board member.
And I think we did have,
I can't see it, so I don't know.
or yeah, I think that we did have, it's not here, but I believe that we had,
It's written up there, any documents or information requested by an individual member of the board shall be provided to the entire board.
Okay, thank you. We can't see it, so.
so adding that into this, are we good with the way this is right now? And then we can take on that other task at a later time when we get to that part. Ms. DePree-Bruno?
Just want to make sure if the board is moving this policy forward, that's going to be reflected in the protocol.
Exactly.
So that's where we're going to start with the protocol, that board members will have access pursuant to this policy.
Right, but it doesn't, right. Okay, it looks like, yes.
Everybody gets the information.
Yeah,
That's the way it should be.
Exactly.
so we're good with this, with
Next
the
number.
changes.
So the next number is 149, version 1 and version 2. I don't really care which one we adopt. I just think that text messages need to be addressed in here. Specifically with regard to the last paragraph of 149, version 1, there should be no expectation of privacy for any messages sent by email. The same should be true of text messages.
Correct. Ms. Patrica, which number? Point 2?
That is version 1, 0149.
Yep, thank
I
you.
don't want to make changes, though, until you determine which version you officially want to
Understood.
go with.
But I think both, if there's any, if I can't recall whether the second one addresses privacy, but board members need to understand that. And the public needs to understand that board members have no expectation of privacy for email or text messages, and that even once text messages are deleted, which they never should be, they're accessible and subject to public records requests. I just want text messages included if I'm making.
Right, now, Mr. Prebrino, is it not already included?
It is included whenever we get a public records request.
Already included, so we should just add it because it's already included when people have requests. I mean, I know we've been asked for those. So, okay, so, I'm sorry, so Mr. Young, or ladies, you need us to figure out one or two. Go ahead, Ms.
Yeah,
Patrica.
so I'm thinking, I mean, is it possible to add that statement regarding no expectation of privacy to the end of version 2?
Sure.
Because version 2, I think, is great, and it's far more comprehensive and addresses some of the issues that have come up with this board. But I also know we've made some missteps with regard to text messages and that kind of thing.
Comments on that?
Back to version 2.
Comments? Two, you like two? Ms. Fisher? Ms. Morgan?
Yes, with,
With the addition about the, adding the text, Ms. Vaughn?
Okay, I agree with the addition of text messages. Do we need also to include phone records?
Mr. Prebrino?
If somebody makes a public records request on.
It's all included, is it not?
That's all included in there, so,
But a phone record is not a public expression.
A phone,
And that's what this is about. It's about the public expression of members.
I'm sorry, are we debating this, Ms. Patrica?
No, we're not going to do
No, I was
that.
trying to have a discussion.
We don't do it that way.
There's,
Ms. Dupree Bruno?
there's one thing that I think would be helpful to the board if it is added to version 2, which is the third paragraph in version 1.
Say that. So you're saying under the circumstances shall board members use emails to discuss among themselves at that,
I'm looking in version 1.
that's version 1.
There's a paragraph that starts with sometimes. the-
Oh, I'm sorry.
That
I
may
didn't
be
take that hit.
helpful to the board.
Okay.
I'm sorry, which paragraph?
So sometimes the letters imply or the readers, listeners infer, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying take that and move that and add that into number 2.
But that's all addressed in number 2.
already-
I think that's important.
Yeah.
So, okay, so Mr. Prebrino?
I'm just pointing it out for the board's consideration.
Ms. Fisher?
But 2 goes on to break that down.
It broke it down.
Yeah, even a little further
Okay.
regarding the opinions expressed.
So instead of one sentence, it's broken out in number 2. Is that what you're stating, Ms. Fisher, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Gittens?
Yeah, I have a question about number 5, statements by board members on non-school matters, providing the statements do not identify the author as a member of the board. Can I have an explanation? Example or something?
That's in 2.
It's in 2
Number
and
5.
number 5. 149.1 version 2, sentence 5.
Okay, Ms., while they're looking, go
So
ahead, Ms.
I write a
Patrica.
letter or an opinion piece for the news press about homestead exemptions and the fact that they're too high. I write that as Chris Patrica, and I'm allowed to do that as long as it's not Chris Patrica, school board member.
I see head shaking over there, is that correct?
Well, okay, so then, in other words, I can write anything I want to as long as I don't say Gwen Gittens District 5 School Board.
Yeah, as an individual, sure.
Non-school matters.
Yeah, as long as it's not about the district or
Freedom
school.
of speech.
Exactly.
So-
It goes right to the heart of the First Amendment, your
Yeah.
freedom of speech. But it needs to be about non-school issues.
Right.
You know, you're posting something on Facebook or doing a TikTok or whatever the things are these days. And you have to be clear that you're not Ms. Gittens from Lee County School Board. It's you doing it as.
Right, and I, like I do that on my, my blog and all that, I do that caveat in the very beginning, that I'm speaking not as a school board member, but as myself, so. Anyway,
Oh, because you're speaking as yourself, but you're speaking on school board matters?
we went through all of this, and we were told, and I was told legally that I can do, and several other members, Ms. Jordan, you did it as well, and spoke on, you know, issues or whatever, as long as it's
Sharing information?
sharing information. It's also not, and I say in the very beginning, do not, if any of you are out there, do not participate, because when we first started doing it, people would log in, and we were told, no, they can't do that for sunshine law, so.
And I think that came from communications, actually, that,
Right.
this conversation. So, Mr. Prebrino, that's what Ms. Gittens is referring to when they were talking about doing Facebook, doing whatever within communications, what is, you can and cannot do.
Are you saying the main thing is to remember to make sure that the public understands that this is your personal statement, not a statement of the board or a position of the district.
And I say that at the beginning, the middle, and the end.
That's why, if I can just go back to the couple of sentences in paragraph 3, that's why I thought that adding that may clarify this a little bit, because it says specifically, and this is really for the members of the public and the media as well as the board, sometimes the letters imply or the readers, listeners infer that the opinions expressed or statements made are the official positions of the board. The misunderstandings that can result from these incidents can embarrass both the member and the board. Therefore, board members should, when writing or speaking, etc. That last sentence is already in version 2. I think that's why I was making that suggestion, just to add those 2 sentences to make sure that it's clear that you're not speaking on behalf of the board unless the board gives you the authority to speak on behalf of the board.
And I see that better now, since we've had that communication. I would be agreeable to have that added into number 2, because it does specifically say, even though we have these other outlines, that definitely is speaking to the listener. So I don't know if everybody else is okay with that, adding that from 1 to, taking that little part from 1 and adding it to number 2. Would that be okay to do that? Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Gittens.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, an example now, I mean, we're in a campaign season. And so, again, First Amendment, if I'm running for office, I should be able to say whatever I want as far as running for office. And know that, and make sure that this is not the collective opinion of the board, this is me. So.
Somebody wants to speak on that one?
Addressed in
Okay.
A3.
Oh, yeah, it's in number 3. Okay, so if we add the word, if we put, okay, so on this one right here, 1.149, if we add the text onto that, as well as that, bringing from 1 and taking that paragraph 3 and adding that to 2, that's where we're at on that one then.
I've done that.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
There was consensus on that.
Perfect, thank you very much. And then, do we have, we got one. Is there any other numbers?
Yeah, I have a lot more numbers, but we are at 1 o'clock, and we still have good of the order, and I do have something for good of the order. I know we're against a hard stop for Neola.
So, Mr. Bruno, we would then have to bring this back for another, I mean, we've got through quite a bit, but I believe this is.
There are quite a few that will require extensive discussion.
Correct.
So the next, is, if we, you want to talk
11th.
about the next meeting?
11th is the next board workshop on policies, so we can continue at that time.
Got halfway through my 7 pages of notes.
Well,
And it may,
halfway through.
Mr., all of you, is there a way that you think that maybe would work better to expedite this for you all, for all of us? Or is this just the way we're going with
I
this?
think it's the way we're going to work.
Okay.
Well, having been a board member, I recognize the value of a meeting like this, where you can say things to each other that you can't say privately. You can bring subjects up that are subjects that you think need to be discussed. I would respectfully suggest that board members attempt to confine their comments to the bylaws and not to the subjects which the bylaws trigger. That would be a way to speak. And I'm not diminishing for a minute the importance of the discussions that you're having about things which are outside the bylaws. But to speed up this process, if we could kind of restrict our comments, questions, concerns to the bylaws themselves, recognizing that the other matters need to be addressed by the board as a whole in a separate form.
Great. No, thank you. I just wanted to, because this, of course, is the time that we can have conversation. So I want to make sure that everybody does have the opportunity to speak and get out what, their feelings or whatever they have to, contribute. So I thank you for that. And we look forward to August 11th. And thank you, ladies, for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And I'm glad you're going to be able to eat lunch.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to it. Okay, so we will go ahead and then move on, and thank you to Pretty Bruno for putting this all together. I know it's been a lot for all of you and all the great comments that everybody has had here. We are at good of the order, so I am going to go, Ms. Fisher, do you have anything for good of the order for this particular?
I do not.
Right now?
No, thank you.
Ms. Giovanelli?
None.
Thank you. Ms. Patrica?
Yes, I I don't want to use the word disappointed because that might come across as too aggressive, but I don't know how to be anything other than aggressive, so I was disappointed that we only have 30 minutes to discuss the Civil Rights and Equity Guide tomorrow, and I'm wondering whether the board would like to ask the superintendent to move some things around on the agenda so that we'll have more time to discuss that. Sorry, I don't know how to say it other than that.
We can certainly, Dr. B, you can't move
Be
those.
amenable to any of the board's wishes regarding that. We were just trying to accommodate all of the priorities for that particular work session. Just about everything that has been scheduled has been a priority of this board. So when you have a number of items, the number of minutes is what adjusts. If you'd like additional time, I would need additional direction as to what comes off.
I'm asking the board if there's an appetite to increase that, and
Well, I think if we can stay focused on what we are doing and come in here with the focus on what has already taken place for that conversation. Mr. Bruno will be here, staff is going to be here to discuss that. And Ms. Fisher, do you have?
Yeah, I thought that the briefing agenda was pretty healthy, and I agree with Ms. Patrica that the discussion on the Civil Rights and Equity Guide is probably going to be more than 30 minutes.
Yeah,
And I
I
didn't
thought that
know
as well.
if the last thing on the agenda, Naviance, was something that could be delayed.
And that's academics, Dr. B.
It's a college career and life readiness framework.
I'm aware. I wasn't sure the request was made of me. I think it was made to the board. So I'm being patient to see.
No, but when Ms. Fisher just spoke about that particular one, I don't think that was part of a request of the board for that particular one.
Well, I guess what I'm looking for is clarification. If that's the item you'd like to remove in order to create the additional time, certainly the superintendent would be amenable to that request.
Ms., go ahead, Ms.
Dr.
Fisher.
Bernier, through the chair, is board action required on Naviance? Do we have to approve a contract? Is there some upcoming action?
There would be upcoming action regarding Naviance and board action and contract work, yes.
Is there a way to, I've already read the PowerPoint, I think I have a good feel for what it is. Is there a way to convert the presentation to a white paper? Provide it to us in advance of board action, and then if we have any questions, it comes up in the agenda review?
We can do that.
Is that something the board wants to do?
Could you repeat that request, please?
Okay. Go ahead, would you?
Can we, in addition to the information
Consolidating. Go ahead.
we already have in the PowerPoint, Can we have the presentation converted to a white paper? We each consume it on our own, and if there are questions before board action is required, it would come up during agenda review.
Ms. Fisher? Ms. Giovanelli?
I'm open to it. I know we're going to take up the time tomorrow.
I believe it so as well. Ms. Morgan, you said you were okay with that. Ms. Vaughn?
Okay.
Okay, and then Ms. Gittens?
I'm not even sure what we're saying. So you're basically saying, I know we need more time to talk about it.
We're trying to
So now
extend the
you're
one.
saying in the workshop portion,
May I?
Yes.
If you look at tomorrow's briefing meeting, the last item, number 6, is Naviance. Dr. Bernier just explained to us that board action will be required on Naviance at some point in the future. So we can't put that information off. The board needs to consume that information. The question before the board is, do we want to take 60 minutes on Naviance, or do we want to extend the time associated with civil rights and equity guide? So in removing Naviance from tomorrow's agenda, we convert it to a white paper. That way, the board can consume the information before it comes to us for a vote.
and when is the timeline though? So that still would make it, the discussion and the decision on that pushed out, right? Is that correct, Dr. Veneer?
Dr. B, do you know when that needs to come before us for a vote?
I have to check board docs.
Would it be like August?
In order to be accurate, I would need to check board docs.
Thank you. So if we can do that without it being an issue, would you then consider that? Dr. B?
Yes, I've already stated in the affirmative that I would be willing to do that.
I know you stated it, but I wanted to make sure that everybody heard that. Okay, so we will go ahead and look at moving that and extending. Ms. Gittens, are you okay with that?
I'll go with the will of the board.
Okay, so we're going to extend that time needed then for the civil rights. And then, was that the only one you had?
That was it for me.
Thank you. Ms. Gittens, did you have anything for?
I have
order right
nothing now.
Ms. Vaughn?
No, thank you.
Ms. Morgan?
I shared an email with you all that is basically my good of the order. I'd like to see workshop time given to the content that I outlined in my memo. Thank you.
Thank you. I have none. Mr. Pre-Bruno?
I have none, thank you.
And Dr. B?
I have none at this time, Madam Chair.
I just have a question, if I may, through the chair. When you sent that email yesterday, you weren't directing the board chair to do anything. You were
No,
bringing it to our attention.
I was asking the board
And
to
so-
to discuss and direct what to do with that, if anything.
So you've just brought it up here orally, and we took no action. So,
Right.
So are we going to add that? I'm continuing through the chair to ask you a question. Are we going to add that to the parking lot for discussion the next time the parking lot comes up? Is that what the board wants to do, or do we want to make a decision now to add it as a workshop topic?
Well, I think whatever is brought before us, we have been bringing it to the parking lot. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Ms. Morgan?
That's true. The process is to put it in the parking lot. I would like the board to consider moving it to the head of the list for workshops, given the time sensitivity of some of the questions I raised.
Okay, so in saying that, we can certainly bring it to the parking lot and then speak on, at that particular day, we can speak on if we are going to move that or not move it.
Now, I'm asking that the board direct that be moved to the number 1 slot in the parking lot, rather than waiting to have that discussion when we discuss the parking lot.
Okay. Ms. Vaughn?
Okay, and I sent a commentary, being careful not to violate sunshine on that, and Ms. Jordan, you weren't able to provide the answer at that time, which I completely understand. We have done all of these topics in a certain way, where we have certain times that we realign, that we keep going back to the various lists. And I'm not denying or affirming that what Ms.
Morgan?
Morgan, sorry, what Ms. Morgan suggested. I'm not affirming or denying. I'm just saying that we need to stay with what we've done in the past. And, you know, somebody can help me with this, I guess. I've never have been good at finding where, is it a Google document that we have somewhere? And I'm not sure where that is. And what you said to me, and I guess it went to the whole board, is yes, we do have a process and many items pending. I do not have off the top of my head when that will be on workshop. We have a lot to get through in the next 2 days. So what I'm saying is that I would like to follow our usual process, take a look at the other things that we have pending, and then as a board decide, should we move Ms. Morgan's request to the top of the list? But I would not want to do that just now without having that Google document and being able to have at least a short discussion on why some of these other things that have been waiting for a while should be pushed down the list in favor of that. So I really think we need to have a board discussion.
Right, so if we can get the list, and I apologize because I cannot find it either. I know Ms. McClung kept that. We'll get that list.
Yeah.
And then perhaps we can speak about that tomorrow at good of the order to see if we can move that up, if that's okay with everybody. And in the meantime, we'll get the list, so everybody will have the list so they can look at it.
And who's going to
know
be
where
doing
we're at.
that for? 'Cause it's been Ms. McClung. Is there, do you know, Madam Chair?
Dr. B, would you happen to know who will be taking over or doing that in the meantime?
Conversation with Dr. Savage today in the midst of Cindy McClung's resignation. I've asked him to step into that role related to board updates, those types of informations, keeping that calendar until such time as a suitable replacement is named.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So, okay, so we will get that information and I will find it and we'll make sure that everybody has that today so we can look at what is coming up or where you can locate that at. So we will all know what is coming up, and then that way we can really have a better conversation on that, if that's okay with everybody. Ms. Morgan, is that okay with you? Sure. Okay, perfect, thank you. Seeing no other, I'm sorry, Dr. B, did you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we will then adjourn this meeting and be back at 2 o'clock.